Welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today we'll be breaking down the top 15 defensive players in all of college football, along with a good list of honorable mentions. This list wasn't easy to put together by any stretch of the imagination, so if somebody's missing, leave it in the comments. Don't, come off on me too strong, because this was not easy to put together whatsoever, so I'm sure whoever you leave in the comments, it's very justified that they should be on here. But with that being said, we'll go ahead and jump into this honorable mentions list. Kicking things off, defensive end Majah Sanders from Cincinnati. This guy actually went to high school with, so he's been progressing very well since he got to college and his later years of high school. He's the Energizer Bunny off the edge for the Bearcats. Great length, short area quickness is also there. Highly impressive. They'll be playing Indiana and Notre Dame, two strong Power 5 opponents this season, so he'll have a chance to showcase his skills like he did against Georgia. He had a very good game against the Bulldogs as well. 7.5 sacks, 5 pass breakups. That length, like we just mentioned, was in full display throughout the season, even making plays in coverage, like we just said, coming off the edge. Next, we got linebacker Peyton Wilson from NC State. I love this guy. He's a great downhill attacker. He understands his gaps. Very hard hitter. He's also an asset in coverage. 177 total tackles over his first 2 seasons for NC State. He's actually my pick to be the ACC Defensive Player of the Year. Phenomenal player, and I think he's going to have a big season for the Wolfpack. Moving to the first corner on this honorable mentions list, Kaiir Elam. This is a guy who really made some good strides in press coverage this past season. He's really physical, has great length. All around, he's a playmaker too. Good ball skills. 15 pass breakups over the last 2 seasons. Florida has another gem at cornerback in Elam. I think he's going to be a quiet riser on draft boards throughout the year. A lot of people already project him to go in the first 2 rounds. I think he's certainly going to play his way into a top 32 pick. At Washington, you have linebacker Edouan Ulofoshio. I love this guy. I was watching this film. He's athletic, makes plays in space. He's a big-time disruptor as a pass rusher. He diagnoses plays very well, has the strength to shed blocks in the run. He can do a little bit of everything. This is a guy a lot of people are really high on, and when you watch his film, it shows up. A guy who really does a little bit of everything for Washington. At Clemson, they had 2 5-stars in last year's class on the defensive line in Brian Brise and Miles Murphy. These guys are both going to be more high risers. They had solid seasons last year, but the talent there, these guys are going to, I think they're really going to be best defensive duo best defensive line duo, I should say, in all of college football. Brise, he's crazy athletic, 6'5", 300 pounds. He's a good pass rusher too. He moves very well, gets in the backfield against the run as well. This guy's just a monster. He was the number 1 ranked recruit for a reason. And then coming off the edge, you have Miles Murphy. He's also 6'5", some massive guys on this Clemson defensive line. It's stacked. It's more than just these 2 guys, but these are the 2 standouts. Also have Xavier Thomas as well. And just a bunch of 5-stars on the defensive line, but these guys really stood out the most. He's an elite pass rusher. He had 11.5 tackles for loss last season as well. He led the Tigers in that category, so he showed up and made an impact immediately. Brise and Murphy both had 4 sacks each. I expect those numbers, double. Both of them will double those numbers this fall. You go to Michigan, defensive end Aiden Hutchinson. He only played 3 games last year, but when he was healthy, like in 2019, he was a great edge presence. 68 tackles, 10 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks. He was constantly making plays off the edge, and he almost had 70 tackles for defensive end. That's highly impressive. So he showcased his athleticism in 2019. If he is healthy, he is one of the top players in the whole entire, not just whole Big Ten, but the entire nation as well. Indiana cornerback T1 Mullen. He's a smaller guy, but he's an underrated blitzer as well. He's great against the run. He's also really good in coverage, too. 17 pass breakups in his first 2 seasons. And yes, he is the brother of Raiders corner Trayvon Mullen, who played at Clemson. So football is in his DNA. A great playmaker. Indiana is very glad to have him, along with linebacker Micah McFadden. The last guy on our honorable mentions list, safety Brandon Joseph from Northwestern. He led the FBS with 6 interceptions last year, but that doesn't tell the whole story. He's more than just a ball hawk. He's great in coverage, keeps everything in front of him. He thrives in the box as well. This is a guy that's going to make some big strides, I think, in his game this fall. Other than just a ball hawk, of course, he does a lot of things very well, a guy I'm excited to see. You see how that was just his freshman year, and he was one of the best safeties in the country, so it's nice. It's going to be interesting to see what he can do as a sophomore and then progressively as a junior as well. Moving to number 15, kicking off our list, George Karlaftis. He was the 3rd highest-ranked recruit in Purdue history. He was the 59th overall in the class of 2019. He's from West Lafayette, so he stayed at home to go to college, and he's been masterful for Purdue, at least when he's on the field. He only played in 3 games last season. He had 2 sacks, and the rest of the team only had 3 in 6 games. So they missed him admirably. They're going to be so glad to get him back, especially if he can remain healthy. Strong, powerful guy. Great athleticism for his size. he uses that power to get to the backfield. He's not incredibly bendy, so that's something you would like to see him improve on this season, and how he plays the run. But overall, again, a big, powerful guy. 17.5 tackles for loss in 2019, which was third in the Big Ten. He also had 7.5 sacks as well, so he's a pure disruptor. The Purdue defense really needs help, especially as we just noted. The pass rush is not very good all around. They only have a handful of guys who really stand out, and so Karlaftis, he's going to have to be big for this defense to have any kind of progression this fall. So that's something to watch for. Moving to number 14, Mike Rose, the 2020 Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. This guy, he's great. He's a great run stopper. He's got great hands. He's also a volume tackler. I think it really stands out is his football IQ, though. He had 5 interceptions last season, which, is a really good number because he was inconsistent in coverage. He still is an asset, but he was inconsistent. His instincts and athletic ability, with the football IQ, they translate to coverage. Just a great football player. I'm not going to compare him to Luke Kuechly, but that's almost kind of what it feels like with all he can provide in the, as an overall football player. I'd like to see him. He gets lost in coverage, but he's shown the ability to cover receivers. So I liked to see him improve on that this season. He's a real stashy stuffer, though. 96 tackles, 10.5 tackles for loss, and as noted, those 5 picks. Great perennial playmaker, very smart. This is just an all-around great football player, former low-ranked. I think he's a former 2-star recruit before he came to Iowa State, and he just turned in a Defensive Player of the Year resume, and he won the award, so big-time player from Iowa State. Moving to number 13, you have Alabama corner Malachi Moore. This might be a little high of a ranking for him, but I really like this kid, and I think he's going to continue to skyrocket up these lists. I think he might be a finalist for the Jim Thorpe Award. I think he's that good. He's the top cover corner in college football when it comes to covering the slot. He's very agile in man coverage. His ball skills are very good. Led the Tide with 3 picks last year. Also had 6 pass breakups. He played through an injury versus Florida, so if you watch that film, you're going to see he was a liability. But when he's healthy, he's the real deal. Alabama might look to move him to safety like they did Minka Fitzpatrick. They could also probably move him to outside corner. Not sure what Nick Saban will do. It's a loaded secondary, so they're not in big need for anything. So playing in that talented secondary is going to allow him to probably stay in the slot and continue to build at that spot. But his versatility really stands out. So I'm not sure what Alabama will do with him this season, but one thing is for sure, and that's what he'll be on the slot. And as just noted, he plays in the talented secondary, and that leads you to number 12, which is fellow Alabama corner Josh Jobe. He's a phenomenal press corner, makes an impact on special teams as well. Very physical. Set the tone in the Rose Bowl versus Notre Dame for a big crack on the opening kickoff. This guy, he can really do it all. You love his physicality. I think that's the main area for improvement, though. He needs to moderate it a little bit. It's a plus, but he also needs to learn to mask it. He tends to get numerous amount of penalties. He also doesn't have great speed on the back end of routes either. But, when playing press up close to the line of scrimmage, nobody's probably better than Jobe at that. 11 pass breakups, 2 forced fumbles last year, along with 55 tacklers. That physicality carries over to the run game as well as a tackler. Great corner for Alabama. The entire secondary really is great. Number 11, Eli Ricks. I put him at number 11 because, everyone else in college football is just really talented, That's the only reason he's at number 11. But back-to-back seasons, LSU has had the number 1 corner. I don't believe Ricks was the number 1 corner recruit, but he was a high-end 5-star, and he came in and was the top freshman defensive player in all of college football. Was great in man coverage. Great ball skills. He put on display early in his career. He had 3 picks in the first 4 games. He ended the year with 4 picks, 5 pass breakups. He also had 2 pick sixes. His after-the-catch ability really shined, especially against Florida. He had a great feel in coverage. He smothers opposing pass catchers. He's all over them throughout the route. And he can close well as well if he's getting beat or he's just a stretch away from his receiver. He's got great closing speed. There's a lot to like about this former highly touted recruit. He's not only just an asset in coverage. I like his ability against the run, too. He has the size. He has the physicality at the line of scrimmage, as noted. Again, another one of those guys, kind of like Josh Jobe. They kind of have similar skills. Both provide plenty all around in all facets of the game. So that is something to see with Ricks. Moving to number 10, Devin Lloyd, linebacker, Utah. This guy does a lot of things really well. He's a good tackler. He's an athletic. I'll go back to being a good tackler. He's not a great tackler. At times he misses angles, and that's something we like to see him. work on in 2021 is the way he takes angles. It's the ways to miss tackles. But overall, he's a good tackler. He's an athletic freak. He's frequently in opposing backfield as well. He has great production. In 2019, he had 91 tackles and 11 tackles for loss. Last year, in only 5 games, he was on pace to shatter those. He had 48 stops and 10 tackles for loss in just 5 games last year, so he was on pace to shatter those numbers. Lloyd, he has great length that helps him seal up running lanes. He's also a very smart player. The positives go on. It doesn't really seem to end with this guy, but I think he's an underrated player, not a guy that people are really talking about, but the impressive short area skills, his ability to close and attack, those stand out, and that's something people are going to take notice of, especially in the Pac-12. I think this will be the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year in Devin Lloyd, great player that deserves more recognition. Tre Vius Hodges-Tomlinson from TCU, they lost Trevon Moehrig in the second round of the NFL draft, but they return another perennial, an elite defensive back, really. He's got good speed, moves his feet well, he can run vertically any pass catcher, which is going to be needed when you're playing opponents like Oklahoma and Texas when they have those athletes in space. He's also got good recovery if he does get beat, kind of like Eli Ricks, like we just mentioned. His ball skills are also a plus. Had 13 pass breakups last season. He's very undersized, though. He's 5'9", 177, but do not get fooled. His physicality is there. He plays with as if his size was bigger, really. I would like to see him add some more, though, and get some reps in press coverage because, with that size, it doesn't allow him to thrive at the line of scrimmage. Because, you can be as physical as you want if you're the smaller guy. Sometimes that's just not going to pay off, so I'd like to see him add some more muscle, add some more weight. But overall, a very good defensive back TCU has in Tre Vius Hodges-Tomlinson. With number 8, Tykee Smith from Georgia. He transferred from West Virginia over to the Georgia Bulldogs. They really needed a lot of help. They replaced 3-4 guys in the secondary that departed this offseason. So this is a big-time addition and a big-time opportunity for Smith to gain some good knowledge, improve his game. He's a versatile physical DB. He mainly thrives in the slot. Great run defender as his physicality allows him to power through blocks, along with being a superb tackler. Him and Malachi Moore is kind of neck and neck for the best slot DB in college football, but there's no drop off of any of them. These guys are both impressive football players. He doesn't have great range, though. That's Smith's biggest problem. You haven't seen him make plays out of his sector. That's something he's going to have to work on with Georgia, with all the coaches they have. That should be a main area of focus. It's not a big concern, but it's something I think that's going to be looked at heavily. 111 tackles, 10.5 tackles for loss, 4 picks, 9 pass breakups, so 15 total plays on the ball in his last 2 seasons as a former 3-star recruit from West Virginia. Great ball player. I really like Tykee Smith. I think he's going to do wonders in this Georgia defense. Moving to number 7, you have Ohio State defensive tackle Haskell Garrett. This guy is 6'2", 300 pounds. It's kind of undersized than many for a defensive tackle, but it doesn't matter. He's a force of nature, very powerful, high motor, very consistent as a pass rusher last year. He only had 2 sacks on the stat sheet, but he was a consistent force on the interior. He got good strength against the run as well. Just an overall guy who wreaks havoc. He drew double teams frequently last year, which is bad news for the opposition. That allows the immense talent around him to do work. A bunch of 5-star defensive tackles and defensive ends at Ohio State. So if Garrett's drawing double teams, that's going to allow those guys to get one-on-one matchups. That's just going to be hard to defend this defensive line overall. So that's why I think Garrett is number 7. That might be a little high to some people, but I think all around, with the power against the run and the pass, and how I just noted how he draws double teams, that just makes you one of the biggest impact players. You see it with Aaron Donald in the NFL. He's always drawing double, sometimes triple teams, and that allows everyone else around him to make plays. So he overall makes his teammates better. So that's why Haskell Garrett is ranked number 7. Number 6, you have Ahmad Gardner. Cincinnati has a great defense. Myjah Sanders, like we just mentioned, is coming off the edge, but they also have a very talented ball-hawking secondary led by Ahmad Gardner. This guy is an elite press man corner. He's not the best athlete, but he checks the boxes very well. He's fluid with his movement, good closing speed. Gardner is also a good tackler as well. Only 59 tackles over the past 2 seasons, but he's did his job, and he's not making bad plays whenever he's tasked with the opportunity to make a tackle in open space. He does that, so very good. Despite the limitations on the stat sheet, that doesn't tell the full story. His fundamentals, I'd like to see that improve on. The way, his footwork, it made good improvements over 2020, but that's a category he could look to continue to evolve on. Hip movement as well needs some refinements. Very small things that you can correct. He should be able to correct with an off season or two. Three interceptions in each of the past 2 seasons, along with a combined 14 pass breakups. I feel like those numbers would be higher if he was targeted more, but opposing quarterbacks have just decided not to look his way, and for good reason. He does not give up much whatsoever. Number 5, Oklahoma. That's probably the most talented player Oklahoma's had defensively in a while. 6'3", 238-pound Nik Bonito. He's probably the nation's best pass rusher. At least he has the sum. That's great news considering he's also pretty good off the ball as well. The athletic ability he possesses allows him to utilize a repertoire of moves with ease, show some instinct and coverage. He's as phenomenal as off the edge, though, as a rusher, as a run defender. He's not very proficient. He needs to add some more strength, and I think his hand usage and placement need to be boosted as well. Despite those deficiencies, though, his overall explosiveness and athleticism, it makes him tough to contain. So those raw traits, it's going to make him suitable as a run defender. I'm not sure how it will translate to the NFL, but at least for the college game in the Big 12, it's going to be very suitable. So you want to see him on the field as much as possible, but you don't also want him being limited to a third down role, which I don't think he will, but if he struggles against the run, you could see him be on the field even less. But again, he's an asset in coverage, so I think Bonito's going to be on the field a lot. And he will be in the running, for Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. He had 8 sacks and a whopping 10 QB hurries last year. Great production. I think he's going to be in for a big-time season as well. Number 4, DeMarvin from Texas A&M. This guy is extremely powerful. He pushes opposing linemen backwards. He has the size of a defensive tackle, but he's very effective as a defensive end as well. Great explosiveness and pass rushing abilities. 6'4", 290. Insane athleticism for a guy that size. So if he added some more strength, or not strength, or if he added some more weight, he has enough athleticism. It's not going to affect it's not going to affect his versatility or his skills, I guess you could say. He's a good bull rusher. Again, the combo of size and athleticism stands out. It's tremendous. Of course, he didn't have eye-popping production, only 2.5 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, but he's a complete game wrecker. He may be leaned on, though, to replace the gap clogger in Bobby Brown. He's now gone, but overall, he's a great run stopper and pass rusher, and I think they're going to ask him to do a lot this year. He's on a very talented defense, but on that defensive line, the versatility is too much to not get him involved as a DT and a defensive end, so with Bobby Brown gone, I think that's a role he could look. I think you might see him on the inside a little bit more this season. Coming in at number 3, we have Kyle Hamilton. This guy was probably pro-ready already after 2 years, but of course he can't declare for the draft until after the 2021 season. He has great athletic ability for his size. He can cover the field very well as a center fielder. He's also an elite tackler. Kyle Hamilton, he does everything very well. Hamilton is such a star in coverage and in the box. His versatility is second to none, really. He also possesses impressive fluid athleticism, has respectable ball skills, 5 interceptions and 12 pass breakups over 2 seasons. The ability for Hamilton to play anywhere in the back end, even in the box, as we noted, it's just tough to get players this talented that can do everything. High character young man, A+ versatility, physical freak. This guy can do it all. Best safety in college football, and Notre Dame is extremely happy to have him in town. And you could see him probably go top 10 in next year's draft. He's that good. Number 2, Derek Stingley. It was kind of a toss-up between Derek Stingley and Kayvon Thibodeaux, but Derek Stingley gets delegated to number 2. He's an elite athlete, 4'3", 40, 42-inch vertical. It's ridiculous what this guy is being. He's also 6'1", 195. It's kind of ridiculous all the traits he has. He's very sticky in coverage. He can run with any wide receiver in the nation. He was only targeted 30 times last year as well. Opposing quarterbacks do not look his way whatsoever. Ed Orgeron has noted that, he might get involved on offense this year. I prefer they not do that. A few years ago when Adoree Jackson, when he first got to USC, he was playing a good bit of offense, and then over time that got less and less toward the back end of his career. That's how valuable he was at corner. Same with Stingley. He's so valuable. I would hate to see him, get beat up on the offensive side of the ball, especially when LSU doesn't need him to do that. But he's that rare of an athlete that you want to get him involved in all facets of the game, so I can't fault him whatsoever. That's just my personal opinion on that. In half the games, his numbers fell off a little bit. He had no picks last year, only 5 pass breakups. But as we noted, he was not getting as targeted as much. But he still has the ball skills, regardless of the production. He's one tough ask to compete against as a receiver. He only allowed 7 first downs in 7 games in 2020. That is just eye-popping stuff. And, before we move to number one, his production in 2019 as a true freshman, 6 picks, 15 pass breakups. Devontae Smith, he got the best of him throughout the college career just a little bit, but that every corner got dusted by Devontae Smith, a veteran as well, so I wouldn't hold that against him. A lot of people will try to knock Stingley for those performances. I wouldn't whatsoever, not a big concern. And that takes us to number one, Kayvon Thibodeaux. He's hands down the top returning defensive player in all college football. And if you disagree, watch the film from the Pac-12 championship game. He reigned terror on USC for 60 minutes, consistently in the backfield. It was just mind-boggling what he was doing in that game. He's huge, 6'5", 250 pounds. He moves with great explosiveness and power. His athletic ability, along with the energy he brings to the table, that's also second to none. He's in line to be the first pick in next April's draft. Dependent on team needs, of course, he'll be a top 3 pick, though. I'd like to see him work on balance, though. He struggled to keep that size and explosiveness under control, which, I think that's a pretty good thing to say if that's the best thing that's the thing you need to work on most, is keeping your size and explosiveness under control. That's how talented he is. Great length as well, just a massive frame. He can wrap anybody up. Again, consistent disruptor. This guy is the real deal. 23.5 tackles for loss, 12 sacks in 21 career games. A big fan of Kayvon Thibodeaux. He's going to reign terror on the Pac-12. I know earlier I said that Devin Lloyd was probably going to be the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year, but this is his best competition right here in Kayvon Thibodeaux. So overall, a great list I think we put together here. Not easy whatsoever, but a lot of very talented guys in college football. And it's going to be interesting to see how these guys all play in 2021. And if there's anyone left off the list, please leave them in the comments. If there's somebody we're overlooking, can't wait for this upcoming season. Leave a comment, like, subscribe, and appreciate you guys checking us out.